So how do you create a shared secret with someone, in public, where anyone could be listening in? It sounds completely impossible, right? But it's the exact problem that was solved by one of the most important ideas in modern cryptography. And believe it or not, it's happening right now, inside your phone, inside your computer, every single day. Let's crack the code.
All right, here's our game plan. We're going to start with the core problem itself. Then we'll use a really simple color analogy to unlock the whole idea before we dive into the actual math. After that, we'll look at where the system can break down, and finally, we'll take a peek at what the future holds for digital secrecy. So, first things first. What was this huge challenge? Why was sending a secure message on the early internet so incredibly difficult?
I mean, this is the million-dollar question. Every time you visit a website with that little padlock icon or send a private message, you and the server need to agree on a secret key to scramble your conversation. But how in the world do you agree on that key when the entire exchange is happening out in the open, on the insecure internet?
Well, before the internet, the solution was physical. You'd literally have a trusted courier show up with a briefcase handcuffed to their wrist carrying a code book. But you can't exactly send a courier to Google's data center every time you want to search for CAD videos. The internet needed something totally new.
So how did they solve the seemingly impossible problem? Well, the absolute genius of the solution, which came from Whitfield Diffie and Martin Hellman, is that you can understand the entire concept without any complex math. All you need is a little bit of paint.
Okay, so let's set the stage. We've got two people. Let's call them Alice and Bob, the classic crypto duo. They want to create a secret color that only they know. But there's also an eavesdropper, Eve, and she's watching everything they do.
Here's how it works. First, they both agree, publicly, on a starting color. Let's say yellow. Now, Alice adds her own secret color to the yellow. Bob adds his secret color to the yellow. Then they swap their two new mixtures, out in the open. Eve sees these intermediate colors, but here's the magic. Alice adds her secret color again to the mix she got from Bob, and Bob adds his secret color to the mix he got from Alice. And boom! They both arrive at the exact same final secret color.
So what's the secret sauce here? It all comes down to one simple fact. Mixing paint is easy, but unmixing paint is incredibly hard. This is what's called a one-way function. Eve saw the starting yellow, and she saw the two mixed colors they exchanged, but she has no way to work backward to figure out Alice's secret red or Bob's secret blue. She is completely stuck, while Alice and Bob now share a secret that nobody else in the world knows.
Okay, that's the whole idea using paint. It's pretty cool, right? Now let's see how that exact same logic works with numbers to secure, well, pretty much everything we do online.
The translation is actually pretty straightforward. That common yellow paint, in the math world, that's replaced by two public numbers, a huge prime number P and another number called a generator G. The secret colors, those are just very large private numbers, one for Alice and one for Bob. And the act of mixing paint, that's a special kind of math called modular exponentiation. Just think of it as a way of mixing numbers that's also really, really hard to reverse.
Let's walk through it. Alice and Bob publicly agree on the numbers 23 and 5. Then Alice secretly picks her own number, let's say 4. She does a calculation and sends the result to Bob. Bob secretly picks his number, 3, does a similar calculation, and sends that result to Alice. Now, for the final step, each of them takes the number they just received, mixes it with their own original secret number one more time, and voila, they both independently land on the exact same shared secret 18. And this flow is really the heart of the whole system. The key thing to notice is that the private keys, those little red keys in their minds, they never travel across the public channel. They are the only pieces of the puzzle that an eavesdropper is missing, and that's what makes the entire thing secure.
This table just sums it all up perfectly. Our eavesdropper, Eve, she knows all the public information. She knows the starting prime numbers, and she saw the results A and B that were exchanged. But without Alice's private number A or Bob's private number B, she has no practical way to figure out that the final shared secret is 18. She's locked out.
The security of this entire elegant system really hinges on one famously difficult math problem. It's called the discrete logarithm problem. And it's basically the digital version of trying to unmix paint. It's super easy for a computer to do the mixing, but it's practically impossible even for a supercomputer to work backward and find the secret ingredient, as long as the numbers are big enough. It's a true one-way function.
Okay, so this beautiful mathematical dance sounds foolproof, right? Well, not quite. No system is ever perfect, and Diffie-Hellman has a couple of really important vulnerabilities we have to talk about.
The biggest, most classic weakness is the man-in-the-middle attack. This is where an attacker, we'll call her Mallory, doesn't just eavesdrop, she actively gets in the middle of the conversation. She does a key exchange with Alice, pretending to be Bob. At the same time, she does another key exchange with Bob, pretending to be Alice. So Alice and Bob think they have a secure connection, but Mallory is sitting right in the middle, able to read and even change every single message. And that is why Diffie-Hellman is almost always used with an authentication system, like a digital certificate, to prove you are who you say you are.
A more modern problem, discovered in 2015, is called the logjam attack. Imagine if millions of locks all use the same basic design. A really well-funded attacker could spend a ton of money and time building a master key for that design. Well, that's logjam. If lots and lots of servers all use the same public prime numbers, a powerful adversary could do a massive amount of pre-computation, basically building a kind of master key that makes it way easier to break into individual connections later.
So, what's the defense against something like logjam? Well, it's pretty simple in concept. You just use bigger, stronger numbers. Today, the standard recommendation is to use prime numbers that are at least 2048 bits long. That makes the math exponentially harder for any attacker to crack.
And all this brings us to the future, because in the world of cryptography, it's a constant cat-and-mouse game that never, ever ends.
You know, the history here is just fascinating. The craziest part is that this whole idea was secretly invented way back in 1969 at GCHQ, the British intelligence agency, years before it was publicly rediscovered and published. And ever since then, it's been a constant arms race. New attacks are found, so we build stronger defenses. But the biggest threat of all is still out there on the horizon.
And that threat is quantum computing. A powerful enough quantum computer, using something called Shor's algorithm, could theoretically solve that impossibly hard math problem we talked about easily. It would basically be able to unmix the paint. And on the day that happens, the entire mathematical foundation of Diffie-Hellman and a lot of other systems we rely on could just crumble. Which, of course, leaves us with the critical question for the next generation of our digital world. The race is already on to develop totally new, quantum-resistant ways of doing this. The beautifully simple idea of creating a secret in public has protected us for nearly half a century. But as we've seen, the mission to keep our digital lives private is a race that truly has no finish line.